YouTube channel once again. Today we'll be continuing hematopoiesis, and today we'll be tackling the various stages in the hematopoietic processes. Alright. So the other time we talked about the characteristics of hematopoietic stem cells, and today we are going to emphasize on the very three main characteristics: the multipotency ability, the self-renewal ability, and the differentiating ability. So when we talk about multipotency, it's the ability of the hematopoietic stem cells to produce different cell type lineages. And when we talk about self-renewal, it's the ability to divide into multiple hematopoietic stem cells to replenish the bone marrow. And then when we talk about differentiation, it's the ability of progenitor cells to undergo series of changes to form matured cells. So these three are basically what the hematopoietic process is entirely about. So when we start with the pluripotent stem cell or the multipotent stem cell, we understand from the definition of multipotent that multipotent stem cells have the ability to produce different cell type lineages. So we can see from the diagram that the stem cell has produced different type of cell lineages. So we have the myeloid lineage and then the lymphoid lineage. So basically these are the two lineages that are produced during hematopoiesis. So the stem cell is able to produce these two lineages: the myeloid lineage or the common myeloid progenitor and the common lymphoid progenitor. So these lineages or these progenitors undergoes differentiation to produce matured cells of different lineages. Okay, so we can see from this diagram that the common myeloid progenitor is capable of differentiating into the megakaryocytes or the platelets, and then to the red blood cells or the erythrocytes, and then to the basophils, the neutrophils, the eosinophils, and the monocytes. Then we can see that the common lymphoid progenitor also differentiates into the B lymphocytes, the T lymphocytes, and then the natural killer cells, and then the dendritic cells as well. Okay, so this is actually what the hematopoietic stem cell does. First of all, it's multipotent. It has the ability to produce different cell type lineages, and from here we can tell that the cell type lineage that we have here is the common lymphoid progenitor and then the common myeloid progenitor. So the myeloid progenitor and the lymphoid progenitor also have the same multipotency in differentiating ability. Multipotency in the sense that the myeloid progenitor is able to differentiate into different cell type lineages, like the megakaryocyte lineage or the platelet lineage. We can talk about the red blood cell lineage. We can talk about the granulocyte lineage or the basophil lineage. Then we can also talk about the monocyte. Okay, and in each lineage there is differentiation. For instance, when we take the megakaryoblast or the megakaryocyte progenitor cells, it undergoes series of maturation to produce what we call the platelets or the thrombocyte. When we also take the proerythroblast or the erythroid progenitor, it can also mature to produce what we have or what we call the erythrocyte. So under each progenitor there is also a differentiation to form matured cells. Now let's tackle this one, the one on the right hand side. So another name for the common myeloid progenitor is colony forming units, granulocytes, eosinophils. We have the monocytes, granulocyte, eosinophils, monocytes, progenitor. So here, the myeloid progenitor also differentiates into other progenitors. So we have the erythroid progenitor, which further matures to form the red blood cells. So this is the erythroid progenitor, which further matures to form the red blood cells. Then we have the colony forming unit megakaryocyte progenitor. It also matures, or colony forming unit megakaryocytes, or the megakaryocyte progenitor. It also matures to form the platelets. And then we have the colony forming units granulocyte macrophage eosinophils. Granulocyte macrophage eosinophils. So as we can tell here, we can form the granulocytes, then we can form the macrophages and the eosinophils, or monocytes, granulocyte, monocyte, eosinophils. So from here, this progenitor also undergoes differentiation to form other two progenitors. So we can see here and there. So we have colony forming unit granulocyte macrophage progenitor, and here we have colony forming unit eosinophil progenitor. So the eosinophil progenitor undergoes series of maturation to form what we call the eosinophil, and then the granulocyte forming colony forming unit granulocyte monocyte, or granulocyte monocyte progenitor, also undergoes differentiation to form another two major progenitor. That is the colony forming unit monocyte and colony forming unit granulocyte. So these two undergo series of differentiation to form the monocyte and the neutrophils respectively. And then also in the myeloid lineage, we have colony forming unit basophils. So this one undergoes differentiation and then matures to form what we call the basophils. Now, when we look at the common lymphoid lineage, or the common lymphoid progenitor, we can see that it differentiates into the B lymphocytes, the T lymphocytes, and then the natural killer cells as well. And we can also see thymus. This is where the lymphocytes are matured, in the thymus. So basically, this is what hematopoiesis is about. So first of all, we have to know that multipotency ability. That is the ability to produce different cell type lineage, and that ability is specifically for the multipotential hematopoietic stem cells, or the hemocytoblast, or the hemocytoblast. Another name for it is the hemocytoblast. Alright. So this is an outline form of what I just illustrated. So when we take the progenitor cells, we take the myeloid lineage, we can see the BFUE forming the colony forming unit erythrocytes, then the RBCs. Then we have the colony forming unit megakaryocytes, which forms the platelets, or differentiate to form the platelets. Then we have colony forming unit granulocyte macrophage eosinophils, which differentiate to form granulocyte colony forming unit granulocyte monocytes, or macrophages. Then we have colony forming unit eosinophils. So the colony forming unit granulocytes, this one monocytes, also differentiates to two other progenitors. That is the granulocyte colony forming unit granulocyte progenitor, and colony forming unit the monocyte progenitor. And this one matures to form granulocytes, or neutrophils, and then monocytes. Then the colony forming unit eosinophils matures straightforward to form the eosinophils. Then when we come to the lymphoid lineage, the lymphocytes matures to form the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes. And then the B lymphocytes also produces the the B lymphocyte also produces the plasma cells. Then we have the lymphoid dendritic cells too as well. Then we also have the natural killer cells. Okay, so that is it for the hematopoiesis. Okay, so now all these processes are affected by what we call growth factors. Growth factors. So the growth factors we may have the interleukins, we have the tumor necrosis factors, that is, we can talk about the alpha, etc. We also have colony stimulating factors. So these growth factors are actually cytokines that induce the proliferation of progenitors or hematopoietic stem cells. They induce the proliferation and the maturation of hematopoietic stem cells or hematopoietic progenitors. So that is what these growth factors does. So what they actually, we also have erythropoietin, then we have thrombopoietin. So what they do is that they bind to receptors on the progenitor cells, and as a result they induce the maturation and the proliferation of the progenitor cells. Okay, so for instance, the erythroid cells may have a lot of erythropoietin receptors. So the erythroid progenitors may have a lot of erythropoietin receptors. So during the proliferation of red blood cells, what happens is that the erythropoietin binds to the erythroid projectors and then induces the proliferation and then maturation. So when we are in our next video, we'll talk about hematopoietic growth factors and we'll discuss more about that. Okay, so pretty quick, let's talk about something here. So here we can see the yellow shaded portion is the bone marrow. Then we have blood. Then we have tissue. So we can realize that all these processes, from this side up to this side, we can see that it all occurs in the bone marrow. So all this process occurs in the bone marrow. But then in the peripheral blood, that is where we have the matured cells. So all the matured cells are found in the peripheral blood. Then we have some found in the tissues, like the mast cells, the macrophages, the dendritic cells, the plasma cells, and then we have the natural killer cells as well, and the lymphoid dendritic cells. So we have the myeloid dendritic cells, then we have the lymphoid dendritic cells. So all these cells are mostly found in the tissues together with the plasma cells. Okay, so that will be it. This is just a brief explanation, and I hope you understand the process of hematopoiesis. Alright, so in our next video we'll talk about the hematopoietic growth factors, and then we will take each lineage and then go deeper into it. So we'll talk about erythropoiesis, we'll talk about granulopoiesis, we'll talk about thrombopoiesis, and then we'll discuss about the lymphoid lineage as well. Thank you very much for joining today's session. Bye.